Hell is Us released on PlayStation and Xbox consoles and PC through Steam in September of 2025. I played it on the PlayStation 5 console, where it currently retails for $60 US. The game focuses on exploration, lacking any waypoints or maps so that players need to focus on directions NPCs give them, all while fighting monsters called Hollow Walkers. Although it looks like a Souls-like, Hell is Us is more like a action-adventure game like God of War. So, is Hell is Us worth playing on console? This review is going to answer that question.
It's a true serum. It's still experimental, hence the polygraph. I would have tortured you, but my employers insist I use their concoction. Now, let's begin.
Let's begin the review by discussing the technical performance of Hell is Us. The game runs flawlessly on PlayStation 5. It features a performance and quality mode, allowing you to choose buttery smooth 60 FPS or higher graphics for 30 FPS. Either option you choose is fine, although performance mode still looked pretty incredible. The game is absolutely gorgeous, with haunting landscapes, eerie caves, and ruined towns. It can be a bit dark at times, and the flashlight they give you can be a bit more narrow and dim than what I would like, but these are just minor complaints overall. The game looks amazing, but the game is also not perfect. There's a lot of backtracking at times, the enemy variety is lacking, and the levels themselves can be confusing to navigate, even if you are paying attention to the directions the game gives you. Overall, while Hell is Us is clearly a AA game, it runs perfect, which is much better than a lot of AAA games I've played in the past.
Impossible. It's you. Please tell me you're not one of them.
No. I just stole their gear.
It's clever. There's so much to say. But the curtain falls on me, my son. My boy. Stolen from me.
Alright, going into gameplay, as I said, Hell is Us isn't a Souls-like. I thought it would be just based on the screenshots that I saw, but it lacks a lot of things that define the genre. There's no bonfires in Hell is Us. Instead, you save at recorders that you also respawn back to if you die. If you do die, you don't lose any progress, you also don't collect any souls or XP, instead your weapons gain experience, allowing you to do more damage, and you never lose experience from it. You can upgrade your weapons to better tiers, increasing the maximum levels your weapons can gain. Enemies respawn over time. Unless you destroy the time loop that's generating them, you need to hunt down powerful enemies within the level to allow access to time loops, and when you do, you collapse it and you gain special items. Hell is Us has two major components to its gameplay: exploration and combat. Exploration is the bread and butter of this game. It's what the focus is on. Levels are often very large, with a lot of nooks and crannies to check out for items, mysteries to solve, and side missions to complete. The game never once holds your hand or shows you where to go. Instead, you need to read notes, you need to talk to people, or discover hints in the world to direct you. This can either be incredibly fun and rewarding to a player, or frustrating as hell. I really appreciated that this game is one of the few that released lately that just sets you out into the world and says, figure it out. All you need to do is pay attention, and everything you need to progress is in the game. However, there is a reason a lot of games have waypoints and markers. It can be incredibly difficult to keep track of clues, even with your datapad keeping notes. It doesn't help that maps are very large, and often things look very similar. It gets really bad in buildings where everything looks the same. I spent hours in a small office building trying to find where to go, missing little clues or an unopened door because I kept getting lost. Hell is Us is some people's dream game, but it can also be someone else's nightmare. If you don't like exploring, remembering clues, and looking for little hints and details of what to do, you are going to hate this game. The exploration is often part of the puzzle, and while these things are almost all simple, it requires exploring the environment and looking for hints. These could be symbols on walls or books hidden around the level. None of the puzzles are especially hard, but many of them are time consuming as you run around, reading and looking at things, marking down hints in a notebook to keep track of everything that's happening. Hell is Us is almost a callback to old games that I remember having a pen and piece of paper on hand to write down a simple map or a code or a series of symbols for a puzzle later. Again, some people are going to love it, but some people are also going to hate it. I'm just glad that the developers of Hell is Us decided to do something different.
I read your psyche, Val. The military officially diagnosed you as being a high-functioning sociopath. I see why you were so successful. Out of curiosity, what's it like to barely feel anything?
Practical. I never second guess. I have no regrets, no fear, no animosity.
Even towards me?
Okay, so as unique and interesting as the exploration is, the combat is terrible. There are very, very few enemy types, and the game only really has 2 bosses. These bosses are more like a puzzle than combat section, and each are frustrating in its own unique way. The combat has a light attack, a heavy attack, and a dodge. You have abilities tied to the type of weapon you have, and drone special abilities that you can switch out as you find them. The combat's just uninteresting at the start of the game, and something you just get through on the way to the puzzles or the exploration, but it begins to drag at over 15 to 30 hours of gameplay depending on how much of the side content you do. You're fighting the same enemies over and over again, and that does just drag on. Thankfully, the game gives you difficulty options. You have easy, normal, and hard, and you can also just customize in between, tweaking enemy damage and health, along with their ability to sense you until you get the game how you want to play it. Even on normal, the game isn't hard, but the combat being the way it is made me turn down the difficulty about halfway through just so that I get through it quicker. When you're fighting the same enemies from start to finish, only having about 4 different enemy types, that wears out its welcome pretty fast. The clips I'm showing in this video are all from the first hours of the game, but trust me when I say that the last level has the exact same enemies as what you're seeing now, just with a level 3 over their health bar instead of a number 1. The combat being the weakest part of the game is really a disappointment, because everything else in Hell is Us is pretty good. I'm sure that when they make a sequel, the combat will have to be improved.
Hey, are you okay? Hey!
The story of Hell is Us is interesting with some fantastic lore, even though the narrative itself has some definite pacing issues. The game takes place in 1992, where the main character, Remy, is being interrogated. The entire game is his retelling from this interrogation, which explains how your character dies and the game just resets, as if it's assumed that Remy was just telling the story wrong. Remy was born in Chaldea, a fictional country that's currently undergoing a civil war. It's not exactly clear where it's located, but it seems to be like Eastern Europe. Chaldea is very secluded and cut off from the rest of society for most of its history. When Remy was young, his parents snuck him out of the country, and the game has him sneaking back in as an adult to find out what happened to his parents. There's a civil war going on, and it's between 2 religious groups, and the UN, called the ON in this game, is there for peacekeeping efforts, but they're not really able to stop the fighting. During the Civil War, you learn that there's also monsters attacking both sides called Hollow Walkers. There are secret societies, strange objects, and other interesting facts that you read through in notes and books as you collect, and you try to find out what happened to your parents, why this war is happening, and why monsters are attacking everyone. That part, the lore of the country and its people, is really interesting. It goes to thousands of years, and you can see it reflected in the architecture as you explore. But the narrative, the part of the game that involves Remy and what's happening, is weak. It's told in short cutscenes throughout the story, and you can miss a lot of the background if you don't explore enough, leaving gaps in the lore that the game can't fill otherwise. The story also abruptly ends, leaving plenty of room for a sequel, but that can also be unsatisfying to players. Let's go into the pros and cons of Hell Is Us. For the pros, the game looks beautiful and runs flawlessly. The lore of Haldia and this world is very interesting, and there's clearly a lot of work that went into crafting it. The exploration is easily the best part of this game, and you're rewarded with searching and looking everywhere. For the cons, while the lack of a waypoint or direction is an important gimmick part of this game, it can be frustrating to not know where to go, miss a clue, or wander in circles for hours trying to find a door that's tucked away in a corner that you just happen to miss. The story has odd pacing, and it ends really abruptly. And finally, the combat is repetitive and uninteresting. You fight the same enemies at the start of the game as you do at the end, with only a couple of variations available. The boss fights are super annoying, with odd gimmicks that don't really work out well. And that's it for another review. Hell Is Us took me about 25 hours to beat, and that was with me doing not very much of the side content or exploring everything in the world. You can easily double that playtime if you enjoy the exploration, but the combat really holds this game back from being great. So to answer that question, is Hell Is Us worth playing on console for its $60 US asking price? That's a definite hard one to answer, and while I like the game, the combat and several other frustrating aspects of it made it difficult to recommend it at that price. If you can get it for $20 or $30, then I would definitely recommend you check it out. I'm the Casual Console Gamer on YouTube, and I'll see you all in the next review.